Good day, everyone. You are officially welcome to Bridgehouse College and Counseling's webinar session tagged International Admission in the New Normal. So with us today, we have affiliate universities from Canada and immigration experts here in Nigeria. With us today, we have Mr. Dave Apio, all the way from British Columbia. And I know you're based in Kenya, right?
Nairobi.
Okay, right. Good. And we have Rob from Carleton University and Strutt from Carleton University. You are all welcome. So to begin the session today, we would like just 15 minutes from our speakers. And I would start with Carleton University. So please, you have 15 minutes to introduce yourself, to introduce your school, and to give us more insight into international admissions, this new normal, and to later answer questions from our prospective participants who are really eager to listen and hear from you. So I'll pass the baton to Rob, and I know you'll do justice to this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eniola. I'm just going to pick up very quickly before I hand over to Rob. So my name's Stuart Benny, and on behalf of Carleton University, we very much thank Eniola, the principal, and obviously Bridgehouse, who we've worked closely with for the past 3 years, for giving us the opportunity to speak to you, the parents, and also the students who are considering studying in Canada and at Carleton University.
Which landlord? Sorry,
So Rob and I have spent quite a lot of time working closely with Bridgehouse and Eniola and the team, and we're delighted.
Oh.
Sorry, I think I was unmuted.
Sorry about that. Can you come again? Can you? Yeah. Yes, please.
No, I'm back on. That's fine. Sorry, I'm unmuted now. So Rob and I absolutely understand we're living in different and changing and times that are quite unprecedented. I think this is a great opportunity tonight just to reassure you as students and parents about what's happening in Canada around the COVID situation, and specifically what you can expect as a student coming to Carleton University, either this year in the fall, or if you're deferring to come in January or potentially next September. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity tonight, Eniola. Rob, I'm going to hand across to you to pick up on some of the specific questions that the students and parents from Bridgehouse have been asking about during the current situation.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you, Stuart. A huge thank you to Bridgehouse for this opportunity. It's wonderful to have a chance to speak with you all today from my home. I'm sure we are all spending more time in our homes than we ever have before for safety reasons, but overall, really excited to have this chance to address you. So it's been about a year, I guess, since my visit to your school. So some of you I perhaps met in the past, those I haven't, perhaps we'll meet on our campus this fall. A good place to start, I guess, is just a very high-level introduction. Again, my name is Rob. I myself am a former international student, so having studied overseas, I can say from personal experience what a tremendous benefit that was to me in terms of my own personal growth. Having a chance to live and be based in another country, to learn from people from all over the world, amazing. So you won't regret your choice, regardless of whether you attend Carleton or go on to another university in another country. It's a great experience, so I salute you for that. Stuart was right in mentioning that these really are extraordinary times. We all find ourselves sort of reacting and living in a new reality from what we're used to. But I think the good news to share with you is here in Canada, things are going fairly well with regards to COVID-19 and our response as a country to the global pandemic. Overall, the country has taken this very, very seriously, and there have been a number of restrictions in place across the country. A lot of hard work and sacrifice, but fair to say that those efforts have borne fruit, and we're seeing every day a reduction in the number of cases, breaking the curve, as you say, and in various stages of reopening. So here in a city like Ottawa in Ontario, we're in phase 2 of a three-phase process. So the good news is that things are looking fairly good. We're hoping for that to continue to improve over the weeks and months ahead. So with that in mind, the university itself is taking its cues from all of the various health agencies at the city, provincial and federal levels as well. So overall, we're doing everything we can to protect the safety and health of our faculty, staff, and students. And so with that in mind, we're offering our online courses, our fall offering will begin online as a prelude to arriving on campus in January. So barring any unforeseen circumstances or worsening of the situation, that is the intention. So we look forward to welcoming students to begin their studies online in the fall, and of course, on campus once it's safe for that to happen again. I guess for those of you that know a little bit of, some of you probably have offers of admission and are contemplating the decision, registering for classes perhaps. Others might be still a year before that. So I'll take a step back and maybe just give you a very brief overview of Carleton so you have a better feel for it for those that have less familiarity. In brief, Carleton is a comprehensive university in Canada's national capital city of Ottawa. At Carleton, we offer undergraduate, master's, and PhD programs in the fields of engineering and design, science, social science, business, and the arts. So across all of those faculties, 22 different programs with hundreds of majors, most of which can be combined together in really interesting and unique ways. Programs to note, I think Carleton, of course, has one of the biggest engineering schools in the country, a very famous program at the university with exceptional resources on campus for the students, but also further supported by being in the capital city where there's a ton of national research organizations as well as IT companies as well. Beyond engineering, of course, we have a world famous business school where you can study international business, commerce, finance, politics, of course, global politics, international relations. A lot of Canada's foreign service workers are former Carleton students as well. A lot of our programming is geared to benefit from access to some really strong, unique resources found in a capital city like Ottawa. And we offer all of this on a beautiful park-like campus in the city center. So it's basically a giant green space bordered by the Rideau Canal, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In many ways, our campus functions like a city within the wider city. So we have clubs and societies, amazing sports facilities. We have our own campus radio station and newspaper. I would describe Carleton as a place where people get really involved in the campus community. However, they don't get that at the expense of being embedded in the heart of a dynamic city like Ottawa. So tons of opportunities to take advantage of. For students that have been admitted for this fall, and for those of you that might apply, we have amazing scholarships. So for example, our entrance scholarship is based on your admission average. They range from $4,000 to $16,000, and you could also receive additional funding based on your grades. So really, really strong support. And then a final thought, almost all of our degree programs offer students the opportunity to get professional paid work experience through our co-op program. So we actually give students the opportunity to build a professional dimension to their degree by studying and working simultaneously in industry directly related to the subject you're studying. So if you're an aerospace engineer, an architect, someone studying law, you have a chance to work in that profession as you progress through your degree. And so you'll earn a salary, of course, to help pay for costs, but I think more importantly, you'll have a better feel for what you might want to do when you graduate, and you'll have a network of contacts that you can leverage for work purposes once you finish your degree. And of course, you can stay in Canada post-graduation through the postgraduate work permit. So amazing opportunities at Carleton. This fall will be an unusual start, quite unique in that it's going to be online, but I'm proud to tell you that we've invested a tremendous amount of resources in facilitating meaningful learning opportunities for students online. So while it's not the same as being on campus, perhaps, we will be offering all of the usual support that we always have. So whether it's opportunities to engage with other students, speak with your professors, do group works and project, even socialize with other students. Sort of it's making the best of a difficult situation. And of course, you'd be arriving on campus as soon as it's safe to do so. So with all that in mind, it's safety and security first for us. So I think that's sort of everything I wanted to cover in a really, really brief snapshot. So Carlton has a lot to offer you, and I'm sure you'll have questions that both Stuart and I look forward to answering. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob. That was very impacting. We also have in our midst immigration consultants who will be ready to answer questions from our participants, or if you have any question, please, you could just send it as a chat. I would read it out before the next speaker. We would like you to unmute your mic for any interference with the speakers. So I would welcome on board Dave to introduce yourself and to give more insight into what UBC has for students and the preparation they have towards this new normal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eniola. Would you be kind enough to grant me access to the screen share option?
Okay, I'll do that now. Just a moment, please. Let me admit someone.
I think you just need to either make me a co-host or...
I think you can now.
Great.
Yeah, you can.
Great. Just let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Good. Good evening and thanks to each and every one of you for making it. My name is Dev Apio and I serve as the University of British Columbia's regional recruitment representative. As always, I'd like to start off by thanking Eniola and the entire Bridge House community for offering us yet another opportunity to interact with the parents and students. It's great also to see some familiar faces. I remember a couple of years ago, Stuart and I traveled across Abuja together, good times. But given the time constraints we are facing here, I won't do a deep dive. I'll just shed some light on some of the experiences offered at UBC, not just in class, but also beyond the classroom environment. I'll talk about the application process, tuition and scholarship. And given the times we live in now, of course, we have to address the whole COVID-19 situation. So it's very situational. I know parents and students might have different questions, but I'll do my best to cover that as well. So to start us off here, UBC is a century-old institution of higher learning in Canada. It's consistently ranked among Canada's and the world's top universities. And that's for a number of reasons. Of course, teaching comes to mind first. Research and innovation is also very key when it comes to why UBC is ranked highly. And of course, our world-renowned professors also happen to contribute to that. Without spending too much time on this, of course, you can't talk about UBC without talking about Canada in general in terms of a higher education landscape. So many of you might ask, especially the parents, why Canada? I won't dwell on all the points, but two key ones that you can take away from this are the academic credentials, which are valued worldwide. So whether you're going to UBC or Carleton, at the end of the day, you can use the credentials you earn from those institutions of higher learning anywhere in the world. Secondly, employment opportunities, not just during, but also post-graduation. So you heard about the co-op work placements, internship opportunities, among other things. And Canada happens to be one of a few places nowadays where post-graduation, one can stay on and work for up to 3 years, even as an international student in whatever field they go to school for. Moving along here, the international composition at UBC. Sorry, I have to play around with this just to make sure you see the content. So the international composition at our campuses happens to be one of our other really great attributes. At UBC, you'll be joining a community that's very broad and diverse internationally. We have students represented from different countries and ethnicities, 162 countries to be precise. And Nigeria happens to be one of them. So we are very diverse and international place. And the growing international student population on our 2 campuses happens to be one of our greatest attributes. UBC boasts of 2 stunning campuses, full of modern learning spaces, state-of-the-art facilities, and research opportunities as well. Both campuses combine the best of a research university education, of course, as well as some aspects of a liberal arts education, interdisciplinary opportunities, among many others. Those campuses are located in Vancouver and the Okanagan. As you can see up there, we are in the province of British Columbia. And if I drill down further here, you'll see that the green dot shows you where our Vancouver campus is, and the yellow one shows you, the red one shows you where our Kelowna campus is. It takes approximately 1 hour by flight to get to our Kelowna campus from Vancouver. And if you're going by road, it's 4 hours. So even if you get accepted to both campuses, you have to pick a team because you can't go back and forth between the 2 campuses as a student. It's possible to transfer to the other campus, but that involves another application process. And since we are pressed for time here, that's one of the things I can talk about later on. So as far as our Vancouver campus goes, we have an undergraduate student population just north of 45,000. As I pointed out earlier, state-of-the-art facilities. It's a coastal campus, as you can see. And one of the greatest things about our campus is, in as much as it's located in the city of Vancouver, you'll see that there's that green area around campus which sort of buffers it from the downtown core, which you'll see on the background. So yes, you get to have that campus feel, but at the same time, the close proximity to the city of Vancouver offers our students not only professional development opportunities, but also entertainment, good cuisine, among others. If that sounds good to you, but you prefer a smaller, more close-knit community, then our Okanagan campus, which is located in the city of Kelowna, would be a really great option. We have an undergraduate student population just north of 9,000 at the Okanagan campus, but in terms of teaching, research, innovation, again, pretty much same as a Vancouver campus. So you get to graduate with the same prestigious UBC degree, regardless of which location you're in. Our students are encouraged to broaden their perspectives and gain valuable life skills beyond just the classroom environment. And that's why we have research projects, work experience which you can gain through the co-op work placements, paid internships, among other experiential learning things. If you are an elite athlete, you can take part in our varsity teams. If you're just a casual competitor, then we have intramural clubs that you can be a part of. We also have other things such as clubs and the Go Global, which is basically a study abroad opportunity for you to take a semester or a year away while still gaining academic credit. As I pointed out earlier, our degrees are recognized internationally, and regardless of where you want to end up in life, they'll open doors for you. I usually drive that point home by sharing a few success stories, and I'll start with Can. As you can see, he's originally from Istanbul, Turkey, studied commerce at UBC, and now works as an investment banker in London. Maithra is another really good case. Actually, grew up and spent her formative years on the continent of Africa in Ghana, right next door to you. Graduated with her engineering degree, and while at UBC, she took full advantage of all opportunities she was offered, which included those co-op work placements you heard me talk about. And as we speak, She's at Tesla, working as one of their sensor systems engineer. And to the extreme right, you'll see Justin Trudeau, probably a familiar face. Current Canadian Prime Minister also went to UBC. So in a nutshell, regardless of which discipline or which area you want to end up in, UBC has what it offers. And that's a good segue into the next slide, which you see, which are our undergraduate offerings. So UBC has both traditional as well as emerging fields through the 261 undergraduate majors offered. And these are spread across 17 faculties. So whether it's applied sciences or commerce or business. And I'll talk about those later on in the fall when I do a more in-depth presentation. But in a nutshell, if you're interested in applying, 3 very simple steps. 1, you have to choose your degree and campus, review your admission requirements, complete your application, and pay your fees on time. What are those admission requirements I'm talking about? Think about them in 3 ways. Think of them as you would of a 3-legged stool. So academic performance is the most important criteria for us. And since you have mixed curricula offered at Bridge House, I know the British curriculum happens to be one of them, so I'll use that as an example. We will focus mostly on your AS and A2 performance, or year 12, 13, depending on how you look at it. But beyond what your certificates and your transcripts tell us, we want to know who you are as a person, because we are interested in those other attributes you have. And that's where the essays you write or the video interviews and portfolios come in. I'll give you examples that are applicable to Nigeria, for instance. If you look at someone like Chimamanda, who's a writer, or Wole Soyinka, who's another writer, and you look at someone like Davido, for instance, who's an artist, these are very different people, but they are all successful in their fields. So through your personal profile, we get to know that one thing that gives you an edge over the other students. And last but not least on this slide, different faculties have different ways of evaluating students' applications for competitiveness, and that will depend on the breadth, relevancy, and rigor of the courses you've taken during high school. So for instance, if you're interested in engineering, definitely you should be taking those math classes, sciences, preferably physics, chemistry. As I drill down further here, you will see we have students recruited from different curricula, whether it's the IB, American curricula, British curricula, or even the local curricula that you offer in Nigeria. And again, I'll use the British curriculum here to just drive this point home. We'll look at general admissions requirements, which apply to everyone regardless of which faculty you are interested in. So for us, we are looking at least 3 academic A-levels courses. And of course, we'll also look at the classes you took at your IGCSE level, or if you went through the national curriculum, then we'll look at your WIAC or WASI scores as well. And then I pointed out that different faculties offer different requirements as well. For instance, if you're going into engineering, the 3 classes you're taking all the way to year 13 must include mathematics, physics and chemistry, or physics and biology, that type of thing. Good thing is, once you get to UBC, you are eligible for first-year credits as long as you've performed well in those classes. For those of you who are doing the American Bridging course, this is a snapshot of some of the things we look at, but I'll just zip through this real quickly. At the very bottom, you'll see the SAT or SET is a requirement. With the current COVID situation, many universities are either opting to waive, or they are test optional, test flexible, or test blind. We're still working through this, but we'll come up with a solution and communicate in good time for those of you who will be applying. Now, one question I get a lot from West Africa, particularly Nigeria, is, must I take the TOEFL, the IELTS, or now the Duolingo test? It depends. If you did well in your exams, whether it's the WIAC, WASI, or your IGCSE English scores and scored a B or better, then you do not have to worry about taking this language proficiency tests. However, if you fell short, then there's a high likelihood we're going to require you to take one of these tests. Now, when you take them, pay attention to 2 things. There's the overall score, and then you have those different segments like listening and speaking or reading and writing. In as much as meeting the overall score is key, you have to make sure that the section scores also meet the minimum criteria. And again, this is something I'll talk to you about individually at the point you'll be applying to UBC. Before I proceed, I spoke about just how important the personal profile section is, because this is where you get to tell us who you are. And so I'm going to share with you a video briefly, which basically highlights that, and then we'll move on from there.
The personal profile section of your UBC application is your opportunity to tell us more about you and your experiences beyond academics. The short essay questions need to be answered in depth. They're definitely not something you want to rush through. Like your grades, your personal profile has a significant impact on your admission, so read over the questions carefully and take time to think and reflect. Your answers will set you apart from other students who also have high grades. Look at all of your past experiences, big and small. What and how did they teach you about the world, about yourself? Maybe you're interested in nature in all of its forms. Or maybe you picked up a hobby because a loved one inspired you. Your transcript tells us about what you have learned in school, but not what you have learned in life. This is where the personal profile comes in. What have you learned that you will never forget? What represents your achievements, passions, and experiences best? How have you grown, and how has your perspective matured? Everyone's experiences and opportunities are different. How have you made the most of yours? After you submit your application, your personal profile will be reviewed by trained UBC readers. Their evaluations are checked, double-checked, and then combined with your academic average to make the admission decision. This is where all your experiences converge. How will your past shape your future?
Okay, I know I'm running out of time here, so I'll zip through this very fast. Housing is guaranteed for all our international students, but if you prefer living off campus as opposed to living on campus, that's up to you, although we encourage all our first year students to live on campus so they can get the full UBC experience. Cost is really important when you're looking at studying abroad. So on average, it costs approximately 57,000 Canadian dollars to attend UBC. That translates to roughly 42 to 43,000 US dollars, depending on the exchange rate. And this will vary depending on which faculty one is interested in going into. Later on, if we have time, I'll walk you through the cost calculator, which is a really neat tool we have on our website that you can use to figure out how much, what ballpark it will be for you. Now, of course, hand in hand with the cost of attending, UBC is very keen on attracting top tier students, regardless of their financial ability. And to that end, we devote $20 million annually to scholarships and awards for international students. We have two categories. What you see labeled there as International Scholars Awards are basically full scholarships, which are renewable over the 4 years. We have the International Leader of Tomorrow Award, as well as the Donald Werang International Students Award. For this particular one, you have to put in a separate scholarship application along with the application for admission. So you'll be working on two applications concurrently. The deadline is slightly earlier, which is December 1st, as opposed to the January 15th deadline, which applies to students who basically want to be considered for what we refer to as our entrance awards, which are partial scholarships. Some might be renewable, others might just be one-time offers. Now, student support is something that's very near and dear to us. We are committed to providing a very safe, supportive, and inclusive, this is the operative word here, inclusive environment. And mind you, this is not just limited to the learning environment, but also the living environment. Because as an international student, if you end up at UBC, that will be your home for the next 4 or 5 years. And we want to make sure that whatever happens within the community, the campus community and the broader community does not impact you in a negative way, because that sort of spirals into the academic sphere also. So whenever our students have questions or need support related to health, accessibility, and when I'm talking about accessibility here, I'm talking about accessibility to, say, facilities related to mental health, or accessibility to professors or other support staff. We make sure our students are well taken care of. Safety is another one. Career and professional development is also key. And we have staff as well as other resources on campus to help you take care of that. I pointed out that diversity and inclusion is very near and dear to us. And given what's happening in other parts of the world right now, some parents are even hesitant to some degree to let students go, but I can reassure you that UBC specifically and Canada in general is a very welcoming, diverse and inclusive place, even for visible minorities like myself. When it comes to study permit, visa application support and that type of thing, because that's one of the things I was requested to talk about. Typically, once a student has been admitted to UBC, we point them to the IRCC website to get the wheels rolling in terms of the process. And in some cases where there are either denials or that type of thing, or more information is needed, we're in close contact with the folks at the Canadian High Commission, both in Abuja and Lagos, to help smoothen that. In addition to that, we have dedicated, designated immigration advisors at UBC who can help parents and students navigate that landscape. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected us in major ways, just as you heard from the Carleton rep, but that does not mean that learning stops at UBC. There are many resources offered, and one of the things that we have in common with many other universities is that learning will continue this fall. It might be online at the beginning, but yeah, still in terms of the quality, content delivery and all that, it will be what you'd expect from a top tier university. Later on, when I'm doing the Q&A, I'll share some links with you through which you can get more information on the same. So as I wrap up here at UBC, you'll find these three themes: a culture of academic excellence, two really beautiful campuses which are in very ideal locations, and of course, the way we embrace active learning, not just within the four walls of the classroom, but also beyond that. So with that, I think I'll come to the end. If you're interested in doing a virtual tour, you're more than welcome to do that on our website. You can connect with me or any of our other advisors. Also, we'll be holding various virtual sessions throughout the fall semester, so feel free to plug in. And last but not least, one of our biggest resources for you to tap into right now that has all the resources is our website. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. I will stop sharing the screen now, and back to you, Eniola.
Thank you, Dave. Very well done. So let me see if I can read some questions for speakers who just spoke. Just a minute, let me start from the first one I received. And I think you've talked about that, UBC, but let me still read it out for your attention. So the question is for UBC. Do SATs, ACTs, extracurricular activities, volunteering work, job experience matter more given the changes and lack of examination conduction during the pandemic? So this person wants to know, as it were now, if they were to send in applications, does this extracurricular, will it have effects in the application? Dave?
That's a really great question. UBC and many other universities in Canada have a very holistic approach in the way they look at your application. So as I pointed out, the most important criteria is your academic achievements. And by that, basically, I mean your grades, but it's not looked at in isolation. There are other things that come into play as well. And since we get applications from high achieving students across the globe, some of the other things that help us know those students better, of course, are those essays they write. And there are some departments that might require supplements in addition to that. But when you heard me talk about the personal profile, it's also a really integral part of your application. Now, English language proficiency is the other thing, and that can be met multiple ways, either through performing well at the IGCSE level, or when you take your WIAC or WASI exams, or any other form of that. And if you do not meet it that way, then you have things like the IELTS, the TOEFL, the Duolingo tests. Now, to the standardized test piece, which is either the SAT or the ACT. In the past, we only needed an SAT or ACT from students going either through the IB curriculum, and even with the IB curriculum, it was limited to students who are just doing the certificate as opposed to the full diploma. For students doing the full diploma, it was optional. Now, for students going through the British curriculum or other national curricula, it was not a requirement at all. But if you're going through an American curriculum school, say you're going through the American International School of Abuja, or the one in Lagos, and you're not doing the IB, you're doing the AP curriculum, then we would require it. Oh. Now, given where we are at the moment, there are many issues universities are facing, especially with access to testing facilities for internationals. And that's why right now, one of the emerging trends you'll see is many universities that typically require the SAT or the ACT are either deciding to go optional or to be flexible or to be test blind at all, which means even if you take the test, they will not be looking at it. Having said that, for us, it looks like come the fall, we will not require, for folks who will be applying to get into UBC in the fall, it looks like we will not be requiring the SAT or the ACT, but with time, in the fullness of time, we will be sharing that information with folks. Coming to extra and co-curricular activities, the reason those are important is because they are the small pieces that add up to help you tell your story. And I'll give you an example. Earlier on, I spoke about Chimamanda, who's very gifted. And say, assuming Chimamanda was a student, as we speak, at Bridge House, who's taking physics, chemistry, and mathematics at the A levels, yet she's an outstanding writer. That's something that sets her apart from everybody else. Or bring it to Kenya, for instance. Some of you might have heard of Wangari Maathai, who was an excellent environmentalist. That's something that set her apart from the other people. So it's these experiences and accomplishments and the way you articulate them through those essays that help us know who you are beyond those grades. And that's why it's really important for one to take part in activities that will not only help them get their college application through, but also it's something they can embrace and continue with once they get to UBC and beyond. I hope that answers your question satisfactorily.
Yeah, thank you.
Eniola, can I just add to that a little bit?
Okay.
I think it's probably worth. Yeah, I think it's probably worth saying as well that on behalf of Carleton, that we are very aware, and this is really to the parents listening tonight and also to the students, this is unprecedented times. And I think what Rob and the team have done at Carleton is they've adapted a procedure which is aware that we're aware that students won't necessarily have all the documentation, they won't necessarily have all the English language grades, and we're adopting a flexible approach to the admission side of things. So we're working with the current situation and we'll look at individual grades. The academics are important to us. We'll look at the background, but we'll also look at mock exams. So we're trying to be flexible and working with the system, and we're really keen to work with you and the team on grades that have been achieved, but also what they've done so far as well. So pretty straightforward, and we're trying to keep it as straightforward and as simple and not overcomplicate it for you and your students and also the parents.
Okay, thank you. So in a nutshell, for students who hasn't written their WAEC, that means they would need to send in their transcripts and mock results. Is that?
So it's a really good question, Eniola, and I've been speaking to people across Nigeria all morning, actually, this morning, and was actually speaking to the Canadian High Commission this morning, and we're very aware that, unlike Ghana, the schools have not really gone back yet to do their WAEC yet in Nigeria, and we don't know when the dates are going to be. So I think, Rob, do you want to come in and just say what you're kind of doing around where they're up to with current qualifications and what that means for Carleton?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, being mindful of the very unique circumstances that play across different regions of the world, being empathetic and supportive of students in terms of not relaxing, but I guess making decisions based on previously completed work as opposed to final exams. So of course, final exams continue to play an important role, and we'll need to see those once they're available. But looking at, previously completed academic work to qualify for conditional admission, thus allowing students to start the study permit process, which of course is critically important, building in enough time to obtain a study permit prior to coming to Canada, working with counselors as well on unique circumstances, and really listening to students and trying to respond in a way that works with their unique, requirements.
Eniola, if I can just add to that a little bit. So my understanding is that we have two cohorts present in the session today.
Yes.
So what I pointed out earlier applies to your students who will be applying for the fall of 2021.
Okay.
Now, if we have any students who applied to UBC, and by now they should have heard back from us, just like with Carleton, we know that many schools and exam providers have been affected by the COVID-19, and that some of your students might not be able to take the final exams or to complete their courses. This might or might not apply to your institution. So we understand how difficult that is, and we are here to support you just the same way Carleton has pointed out that they're doing the same. So in order for us to confirm the offers that were given, because they were conditional, a couple of things need to be done.
Yeah.
One, the students need to complete whatever form of coursework their school made available. So I know you have your own internal mechanisms of meeting that. So they have to make sure they complete that. And then you as the counselor, and I can talk about this with you later on, can email us those final grades. I'll share with you the email address that goes to confirm that yes, the student has completed that course, and final documents will be submitted to us. So yeah, in a nutshell, very similar in that sense.
Good.
Eniola, I thought it would be worth just adding as well in terms of the situation of students starting to do blended learning and what that means in terms of applying for study permits as well. I think it's really important to say, and certainly from Carleton's point of view, that we understand the fluid situation. So if a student was to start from Bridge House and start a blended learning experience in that area as they apply for their study permit, if for any reason that study permit was to be rejected, then obviously the monies would be refunded. And I know that's a question a lot of the parents have been asking, nervous about committing or accepting their offers for this year. So we absolutely understand that situation. I think it's important to know that you're not going to be financially out of pocket either way. And we would encourage you, if you do have an offer, even although we don't know when staff are going to be back on the ground in Kenya for the processing, that you actually put your online application in for the study permit. So you're further up the system as things progress. And hopefully, we don't know how no one knows exactly what's going to happen with the situation. But if you start online in Nigeria, hopefully you will have the opportunity to come onto campus at Carleton, either towards the end of semester 1 or certainly into semester 2. So hopefully that just helps give a little bit of reassurance to students who've already got their application in the pipeline to Carleton.
Oh, that's beautiful. Then that takes me to another question for Carleton. Can you give an estimate of the tuition fee? Someone has asked that, so please confirm the fees for each college per annum. So Carleton.
Rob, do you want to pick up on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So tuition fees, of course, are calculated based on course registration, and certain courses or programs have higher fees. Generally speaking, engineering, science, anything lab-based is usually a little bit more expensive. So at Carleton, right now, you're looking at a range between 30 and 50,000 Canadian dollars, depending upon which program you might apply to. And then, of course, inclusive of living expenses, and then funding, which I mentioned very briefly during my brief overview. We have really strong entrance scholarships, competitive awards that you can apply for based on extracurricular activities, leadership skills, and good grades. And of course, opportunities to work and study simultaneously as well. So all of that should help. We also offer bursaries, which is, I think, a fairly unique attribute based on financial need. So not for first-year students, but second, third, and fourth-year students could receive a gift of funding based on personal family finances.
Okay, so first year, no bursary, but second year, third year, fourth year, they have bursary consideration.
Yeah, and scholarships, of course, would start from year 1.
Okay, good. May I ask as well, what's the minimum English requirement for Carleton?
So for Carleton, we're going to look at the student's grade point average overall for admission, prerequisites of course included. For many Nigerian students, English language proficiency is demonstrated by virtue of studying in English medium curriculum schools. So certainly students studying with you for at least 3 years would have that English language proficiency test requirement waived for them. If we did ask for a test, it would be a 6.5 on the IELTS or an 86 on the IBT.
Okay, okay. And do you also consider SAT exams, just in case someone is looking at that for Carleton?
That's a great question. So we do not require the SAT for students applying outside of the United States, but we're happy to receive SATs should the student have written them and had good results. So for example, if you've done really well on the SAT, it could bear into receiving a higher entrance scholarship. ACT subject scores could be helpful when assessing prerequisite courses for competitive programs. So not necessary, but certainly welcome if they're available.
Okay. So what quarantine procedures are in place for students if they come to Carleton? Considering the pandemic, and we know this pandemic might still stay a little bit longer, but how best would you address students coming into your school as it relates to quarantine and social distancing?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So a huge amount of work and time is being spent right now in preparing for the fall and for when students return to campus, for new students, likely January. So there's a number of things taking place, including converting traditional shared residence rooms, which we had, of which will not be appropriate in the new context. So we're going through all of that hard work right now. But for students arriving to Canada to attend Carleton, we'll be offering support with the 2-week quarantine requirements. So through our on-campus accommodation, of which most students select to live in when they first arrive in Canada, it's a great way to make friends and connect with other students right away. So through residence, we'll be able to help facilitate that 2-week period where you're obligated to kind of self-quarantine.
Okay, thank you. Another question for Carlton. Do you consider voluntary work and job experiences when students apply to your school in major courses, or are there selective courses that these job experiences and voluntary work are very particular about?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. The majority of our courses are assessed based on previously completed academic accomplishments from secondary school or high school. So for the most part, the academic piece is the critical piece. Prerequisites, all of that stuff included. The exception would be any of our sort of architecture school at Carleton, industrial design as well, for sure. We have a performance-based music school as well, so singing and playing music, as well as the humanities, information technology, a few others. In those cases, we do have additional requirements that include portfolio of work showing your artistic skills, highlighting your leadership endeavors through volunteerism and community service. So certainly for those programs, you would want to make sure that you highlight all of the good work that you've been doing throughout your secondary school career. But also for our prestige awards. So beyond the entrance scholarship, which is one that every student is automatically assessed for by virtue of applying to Carleton, we do offer competitive scholarships that do require a separate application and are awarded based on having high grades, but also leadership skills. So volunteer work, community service, sports, music, volunteerism, that whole sort of slate of activities would be excellent to highlight for that application.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Let me allow you to sit back a little. We have a question for our consultants in-house here. They've asked, when is new students resuming this September likely to do their biometrics capturing at the VFS office in Lagos? So, hello, can you hear me? Oh, let me unmute your mic. Sorry, let me unmute you. Just a minute. Or can you unmute your mic? Virtual education. Okay. Okay, let me come again. Let me say this again, so for clarity. Now, the question wants to find out, for students who would be resuming this September, do you have an idea of how they are able to do their biometric capturing? And can you give further insight to your services and study permits application processing as it relates to Canada, please?
Thank you very much, Janela. Study permit application is still on. All the applications are done online this time because VFS not open at the moment. So all the applications are done online. As for the biometric, commence work, but all the applications are done online at the moment.
Okay, so do they need to, will the application still be, will it still be considered irrespective of them not doing the biometrics?
The current situation in the world, not just to Nigeria alone, is something that any agency may put into consideration. But if I must make reference to the ones we did recently, though those ones based on some of them are in Canada already, they just need to renew their permits.
Okay.
What some of them did, they applied before, no biometric not valid for 10 years, and that they have a reason to do another biometric. So for that reason, I might not just conclude that the biometric will be waived, but since the current situation in the world is something that a bit concerned to every one of us, I believe the agency will have the best answer to that, whether to waive biometric or to still hold on to it.
Okay, So in your advice, you would say they should submit, they shouldn't assume that because the VFS isn't open, they can't submit an application.
My advice that they should submit application online. The biometric will not stop the processing of the study permit. Biometric is just one of the requirements, not the only requirement. So the application can be submitted online. Let the application still be on process. Let it be under review by the CIC, pending when they decide to take a decision. What I'm saying, they choose to take a decision without biometric, fine. But if they still want to ensure that biometric is taken before resumption, we are just in the month of June. We still have July, August, before September. And any application submitted on time, I believe before then, things might change. And as soon that is, the biometric is compulsory, the person can do biometric today, that same week, the person is lucky can get that to keep waiting when the VFS will open. But then it might be too late to put in the application.
Okay. Thank you. I would advise you also probably later on project your contact details for parents and prospective students who would need your services. So I would be able to pass this across to them.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe you project it later on towards the end of when I'm about to wrap it up, then I would request you project your contact details. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so, okay, yeah, Rob, Strut, do you want to say something?
No.
Okay, Dave. Okay, Dave.
Yeah. So in terms of, because this is one question we've gotten a lot from parents and students who've been admitted to UBC already. And I'll rephrase the question. So basically the way it comes to us is, do I have to apply for a study permit if the courses are moved online because of COVID?
Okay.
What we are encouraging students to do is, yes, they can begin their programs through distance learning from outside Canada, because as someone pointed out earlier, nobody knows how long this will be. Canada's borders might be open, but say Kenya's, for instance, or Nigeria's might not be open. So for students who opt to start doing so online, they can just go ahead, put in their applications for study permits. The other thing along those lines is, as soon as one is admitted and they have the documents they required, nothing stops them from doing so and getting in the queue. After they apply, of course, they'll be asked to do their biometrics, medicals, among many other things. But we are confident that immigration will account for those delays and will process study permits as quickly as they possibly can once they have the capacity to do so. So again, to anyone who's been admitted to UBC, if you have your admission letter, go ahead, start applying for that permit. One last point on this again, if eventually one intends to apply for a post-graduation work permit after they complete their studies, then the sooner they do it, the better.
Okay.
I would just like to add in there as well that I think it's quite important to say that, and this is for reassurance for the parents listening tonight and also the students, that if the student does start doing the blended approach in Nigeria before transferring across, it's safe to say, and this has been announced by IRCC in Canada, that any time spent blended learning or distance learning or on the ground in Nigeria will still count towards the post-study work visa as well. And I think that's really important because there was a lot of uncertainty around that, whereas Canada came out very early to make that announcement. So real reassurance that the study, if it has to happen in Nigeria, will count towards post-study work at the
Okay. Okay, thank you, Struck. I don't know if other people were able to hear you effectively. Perhaps you need to say that again and to let them understand that haven't gotten the admission, they should continue. Once the school opens the blended approach towards admission, either online, well, virtually, they should register and as well submit the application for visa.
Yeah, NAO, I think it's very straightforward. So it's similar to what you've been doing at Bridge House as well. I mean, many universities, including UBC, I would imagine as well, Carleton shifted to an online delivery platform in a matter of days and weeks because of the situation, and they had to. Students who are starting in year one will be of exactly the same standard if you were in large lecture theatres as well. It's just a different way of learning. But to answer your question, absolutely. Continue your registration, apply for your study permit, and when the time comes to open the international travel corridors between Nigeria and Canada, then the study permit is being processed, and it should be a fairly smooth process across to Canada.
Okay, okay. So a question is being asked that for students planning to go to school in Canada in January, is it too late to apply for a study permit visa?
Rob, do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on the university you've applied to for sure. Some universities will have opened their January term for applications. Some universities it'll be quite different between Carleton and UBC and any of the other universities that you might be looking at within Canada. Overall, I think for the study permit piece, whether it's for this September or January, as soon as you have your offer of admission, I recommend applying for a study permit. So I don't think you need to wait. You shouldn't wait. As Dev mentioned, I think once you submit your online application, your name is in the processing queue. So you are automatically going to be ahead of people that apply behind you, which is definitely going to make a difference during these unusual times and the inevitable backlog of processing that might be sitting there waiting for processing. So do apply. I think that's really important. For Carleton, we haven't announced our January offerings at this stage. We will be offering some programs at that time. So if you do hold a September offer and you would like to defer to January, I know for commerce, for the arts, economics, cognitive science, there's a few options that allow for that. In other cases, like engineering, it would mean waiting until next September. And then when you think about the whole context as a individual thinking about your life plan, you have to kind of weigh, coming in person being more important than starting online, but having to wait a year to do that versus taking advantage of like the meaningful learning opportunities that are offered in the short term prior to arriving and allowing you to continue as you'd originally intended, if that makes sense. But there's certainly options depending upon what you might be thinking, whether it's deferring, applying to a future term, or starting in the fall.
Okay, thank you. Do you consider okay, another question is this. Are US citizens considered as international students in Canada, both in terms of immigration and fees?
Yes.
Okay, I think Dave wants to answer first. Okay, Dave.
Yeah. So at UBC, no, Rob can go first.
Okay, Rob.
Sure. Within the Carleton context, correct. U.S. students are considered as international students with regards to the application process and the fees. We do work with students based in the U.S. that have student loans. So, I mean, when it comes to financing, there are some differences perhaps. But in terms of how we assess and view applications, it's really quite similar for international students.
So the same thing goes for us. US students are considered international students at UBC. And just like with Carleton, one of the differences, say a US student would have, or maybe let me rephrase it, a US passport holder, because I know there are kids who go to school in Nigeria, but they have American passports and they might qualify for financial aid and loans from the US. Those loans are applicable at UBC. And so unlike say a student from Kenya or a Kenyan passport holder who might not be eligible for that kind of funding, a student who's a US permanent resident or citizen would be able to use their financial aid from the US. And then if you can allow me, I'll just take you back a little bit to the whole September of 2020, because a couple of things came up. And for parents, I'd like to break this down. So some of you are probably wondering, oh, can a student defer? At UBC particularly, there's an opportunity to defer, but there's an application process that's involved in that. And just because you're applying for that deferral does not necessarily mean that it's going to be guaranteed. So for those interested, the sooner one does it, the better. But having said that, depending on the program one is in and the courses they've chosen, at UBC, we know for sure that our fall term will begin online, and the courses they've chosen, their experiences, and some of those things might be fully online. For students who are currently in Canada, there might be some very limited on-campus activities and options for them. But no matter what format of instruction your son or daughter will be taking, whether it's online for those who are on this side of the Atlantic or in class, you can still look forward to a couple of things. Learning from world-renowned professors who are experts in their fields, making strong and lasting friendships with classmates, collaborating with peers all over the globe, engaging in research that solves real-world problems, and last but not least, discovering new interests, skills, and strengths. So like one of the speakers pointed out earlier, if I were in that situation, I would most likely start with the online option and then continue with the studies once the borders open in person. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Dave. There is another question that is for you. I think they weren't certainly clear when you were talking about the postgraduate permit and how students can plan to start applying for the postgraduate permits. Can you made mention of postgraduate permits application. Can you still come again regarding that, Dave?
Can you repeat your question?
Okay.
You are a little bit spotty. You're in and out.
Okay. Can you explain the postgraduate permit that you made mention during your presentation, and how is it for students planning to start this fall? When is it the best time for them to apply for the postgraduate permit? Wait.
Okay, so first of all, I have to put a disclaimer out there and say I'm not an immigration specialist. I am a recruiter.
Okay.
But having said that, most Canadian universities offer students the opportunity to stay on after they graduate. And I think context is really important here. For some of the parents in the audience, you're probably aware that for quite some time, there are destinations where upon graduating up to a certain point, students would have to leave the country and go back to their country of origin or go straight into graduate studies. In other countries, depending on the field, one would have to take advantage of that opportunity, but only for a year or 2 years before moving on. But in Canada, regardless of what a student is going to school for, once they complete their studies successfully, they have the option to 3 years upon graduating while looking at other options. So I don't want to go anywhere beyond that because like I pointed out earlier, there are some immigration things involved in that, which I cannot speak to, but I'll be more than happy to share the email address of our designated immigration advisors on UBC's campus, who will be more than happy to address those.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Any other question for the audience? Please, can you just send it to us over chat so that our participants will be able to address any question you have. If in the absence of none, I would soon declare officially this meeting over. But before then, Rob, if you have your details, could you project it on your screen for our audience to take a screenshot of it if you have?
Yeah, for sure. And just, I guess, a quick follow-up point. Today was a brief opportunity for all of us to have a conversation about great education options. As Dev mentioned, Canada across the board has amazing universities and a welcoming environment. Hopefully today could be the beginning of further conversations. So I know if you're hoping to follow up with me after today, I'm very happy to answer your questions by email, or Carleton hosts a live chat for international applicants every day between Monday and Friday through our landing page through international admissions. So we're available to answer questions, and we're hosting and regularly engaging with students, putting students in touch with each other as well. So if you're thinking about coming to Carleton in September or whenever you're able to, January, I guess, and you'd like to meet with other students from Nigeria that are also attending, reach out, because I can introduce you and maybe you can coordinate flying out on the same flights together, or, you know, meet up for coffee in your home city as well, perhaps. So lots of opportunities for further conversation. I'm just opening the chat, and I'll add my email address there for anybody that is interested in asking questions to me after today.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Just another question for you. Do you, for students who would like to enter into year 2, are there provisions for applications to year 2 in Carleton?
The answer is no. So we accept students that that apply to the university from post-secondary institutions. So if you've completed a year of university at an accredited university in a comparable program, then we would assess your candidacy based on your completed work at that university. You would be eligible for advanced standing or transfer credit based on the program you're applying to. So we'd be able to make those assessments for you at the time of admission. For students that complete A-levels or IB higher level courses, advanced placement courses through college boards, we recognize that additional effort with advanced standing in year 1 as well. So if you've completed, for example, 3 full A-levels, you could receive a reduced number of courses for your first year at the university as well. Okay,
thank you. Dave, do you have any provision for second year entry?
So very similarly to Carleton, we have a transfer program, but this is for students who completed transferable courses from an accredited university anywhere in the world. So for instance, one can start, and actually as a matter of fact, we have students who applied this year who already completed their first year in Nigeria and in other parts of the world. Their timelines are slightly different from the ones a direct entry student would have to meet. Their requirements are also slightly different. And one of the most important things, especially if you're going into fields like engineering and you want your credits to count, we have a tool on our website for transfer students through which you can see which courses you can take at certain institutions and transfer them to the other. But yeah, so to answer your question, yes. If anyone is interested in more of that information, I've shared my email address there. It's dev.apio dev.apio@ubc.ca. The other thing I'm going to do, since there are so many COVID-related questions ranging from housing to what format instruction is going to take and that type of thing, I will just go ahead and share another link with you that you can feel free to go into. We have our admissions director, Sam Saini, has done a short video to answer some of those questions and to allay some of the fears. And last but not least, again, our website, which is you.ubc.ca, and that has everything that you'll need. But in case you have any additional questions, as Rob pointed out, this was just a conversation starter. We'll have plenty of opportunities to interact with you, especially for folks who will be applying come this fall. And for those of you who've already been admitted, I'm here as a resource for you. In case you have any questions, you're stuck or whatever, I am that point person who will put you in touch with the folks either at the Vancouver or the Kelowna campus. And once again, many thanks for offering us this great opportunity, and I look forward to interacting with everybody. And Rob and Stuart, good seeing you. Virtually. Yeah, I'm sure when the borders open, we'll meet again.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob.
Eniola, and everyone at Bridge House, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We will be officially bringing this to an end. They've actually shared their addresses and contact details for further follow-up questions. Please feel free to liaise with them and get your feedback as prompt as possible. We appreciate our parents, we appreciate our students in-house, and for our parents and our students, we still have the study center open for students who will be receiving online lectures from their universities to actually make available themselves to use the school's facility in case they have any issues at home. So the school will be available, the study center in the school will be available for our students to continue their university education virtually, pending the time the travel restrictions will be lifted. So once again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leola. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me see the display address. Leola, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
Just for our parents to know and the students.
Okay.
We are still dropping application through our boss portal online. You know, it's a way of fastening the application through our portal with the CIC.
Yes, please.
So you can know.
Okay, can you please resend your contact details for us, because you sent it privately to me. Let our parents have your details as well. Just copy, put
okay.
Yeah, send it again, please, for everyone. I've opened your chat for chat. See your number and your email address, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, have you shared it? So I
was okay. I'm coming.
Okay.
Yeah, Chirumani.
Okay.
West side.
Okay. Thank you, Virtual Education. I know this will be well received by everyone, and we look forward to inviting you in subsequent webinar when next we have one. And thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, enjoy your night.
Yeah.